After 29 days of testimony and 74 witnesses being called, 68 by the prosecution and 6 by the defense, the jury commenced deliberating the fate of Karen Read, who stood trial for the death of her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe. After 5 days of deliberation, the jury reported that they were hopelessly deadlocked, and ultimately, Judge Beverly Cannoni declared a mistrial. A lot has happened since that mistrial was declared on July 1st, 2024. The defense and prosecution are again at odds, and this time it has to do with whether or not the jury reached unanimity on 2 of the 3 charges Karen was facing. If so, the defense is saying she should be protected by double jeopardy. The prosecution is saying, hey, not so fast. No formal verdict was submitted. We have a lot to talk about. Let's get into today's video. Hey everyone, what's up? It's Sarah, and welcome back to Sarah Spills. Minutes after Judge Beverly Cannoni declared a mistrial in the case of the Commonwealth versus Karen Read, the district attorney's office announced it intended to retry Karen Read. At this point, I think we are all viewing this district attorney's office as a dog with a bone that they just can't let it go. There is a status conference scheduled for this Monday, July 22nd, where we will hear officially what the DA intends to do, but so much has happened in the last couple of weeks that it makes the prosecution pursuing retrying Karen Read ill-advised. Some even may say that this is no longer about a pursuit of justice, but rather revenge on Karen Read for exposing very obvious and objective corruption in the various law enforcement departments in Massachusetts. I personally believe Karen Read was framed. However, I think you could think that she possibly could be guilty and recognize the players involved in this case are sus as fuck. 2 different police officers that are merely witnesses in this case destroyed their phones the day before a preservation order came down for them to preserve their phones. I mean, come on. I've actually been listening to the prosecutor's podcast coverage of this case, and I'm just like, whoa, we must have been watching 2 completely different trials. Hot takes, more like trash takes. Do not come at me if you are a super stan of that podcast. I mean, some stuff I agree with them on, like the fact that the defense really did create a burden for themselves where none legally existed when they stated in the first sentence of their opening statement that Karen Read was framed. But the way these 2 podcasters mock the conspiracy theory as if there is no way on earth a police officer or a prosecutor or a judge could ever act in bad faith is just gross, in my opinion. I've never listened to this podcast before, but I'm not going to be listening to them any further. Alec Baldwin just had his criminal charges dismissed with prejudice because the judge found the prosecutors knowingly suppressed evidence. One of the special prosecutors in that case, Erlinda Johnson, literally quit mid-hearing last Friday when she felt like the charges against Alec Baldwin should be dismissed because of this error. But the other prosecutor, Carrie Morrissey, was like, nah, we're gonna go full steam ahead. And this is what I am talking about. When the case becomes about winning as opposed to the pursuit of justice. Erlinda Johnson recognized this and she noped right out of the situation. That was the right move. So minutes after the mistrial was declared in the Karen Read case, the Norfolk County DA announced they plan to retry Karen Read. Hours after the mistrial, the Massachusetts State Police announced that the lead investigator in the Karen Read case, Trooper Proctor, was being placed on leave. He had a disciplinary hearing on July 8th, which led to him being suspended without pay. That's a big deal. He has another hearing coming up, which could lead to his termination.
Misconduct in any way, shape, or form of the Massachusetts State Police will not be tolerated. I condemn those comments in the strongest terms possible. They are not reflective of the Massachusetts State Police. That's not where we want to be as an organization. We have, as you know, initiated an internal affairs investigation early on in this process. Part of that is to monitor the case that was ongoing. We wanted to make sure we had all the information available to us through the trial process. I also want to point out that trial process currently is unresolved, and we have an open internal affairs investigation, so I'm not really in a place where I'm going to comment on that any further. I will say very generally that we monitored the criminal trial in an effort to get as much information as possible, as it may or may not reflect on members of the Massachusetts State Police and their conduct, and we wanted to make sure we had all of that before we made a decision. We also wanted to respect the trial process, and we want to be mindful of the ongoing internal affairs investigation.
Retrying this case is going to look real weird if the lead prosecutor was literally fired for his handling of said case. Mind you, the defense can change their tactics. They can take feedback from jurors, they can watch trial coverage, and they can alter their strategies. The prosecution can't really do that. What they say are the facts of the case is what they are stuck with, and the independent FBI experts hired to reconstruct and analyze this case and how the prosecution says this happened, these experts say it defies the laws of physics. So I don't know what we're doing here. If something the prosecution says happened defies the laws of physics, how is that not at least reasonable doubt? Days after the mistrial, defense attorneys David Yannetti and Alan Jackson filed a motion to dismiss counts 1 and 3 against Karen Read based off of information they received that the 12 jurors were in unanimity on voting not guilty on those counts. Count 1 was the murder 2 charge, and count 3 was leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. Count 2 was supposedly what the jury was hung on, and count 2 included lesser included offenses, but the main charge was vehicular manslaughter while under the influence. Here's the problem. The jury never submitted any formal verdict memorializing what had been told to the defense. Apparently, the verdict slips for counts 1 and 3 were left blank, as was the slip for count 2. They just reported that they were hopelessly deadlocked. The Commonwealth has filed a motion opposing the motion to dismiss because legally, the jury never formalized a verdict on counts 1 and 3. And now we have this predicament where Karen Read quite possibly be subjected to double jeopardy, something our Constitution protects her from. If, in fact, the jury was unanimous on acquitting on counts 1 and 3, she should not be tried again on those counts. But because the jury never formalized that verdict via filling out the verdict slip, we are in this situation where legality and morality may not be on the same side here. Emily D. Baker talks more about this.
And under the law, it seems that there is not much the court can do to reopen this issue. This is a legally very difficult position for the defense because reopening the jury after they've been dismissed isn't something that can be done. There's no law to allow for that. Once the jury is dismissed, it's over. And there's no law that allows the court to ask about what took place in deliberations. There are small exceptions to that dealing with outside influence. So as I said, when this came down, the law doesn't really allow for this to be remedied if this is what the jury decided. So we're going to have to see how this goes forward. And it might be that the right result is the prosecution chooses not to move forward on those counts, but I don't know if this prosecution's inclined to do that based on everything we've seen. But then again, my thoughts on this trial, especially after watching all the evidence play out, is why did they bring this case in the first place?
Additionally, in the days and weeks since the mistrial was declared, Paul O'Keefe, John's brother, has come out in full support of the prosecution, the Alberts, and the McCabe's, and he fully believes Karen is guilty of murdering his brother. He says his family is prepared to do this as many times as necessary to secure a conviction. Again, I ask, and I recognize this is much more difficult for the family of the victim, but are we pursuing justice here, or is this about revenge? If I were the DA, I'd cut my losses. The townspeople of Canton are pissed. Their select board meetings somehow get streamed on YouTube, and they have been going off the rails. These people don't want to see more of their tax dollars wasted on pursuing a conviction of Karen Read. Almost everyone I've talked to about this case, whether or not they believe Karen Read is guilty or not, can agree that the investigation into the death of John O'Keefe was completely botched. And any evidence coming from lead investigator Michael Proctor is now fruit of the poisonous tree. I hope all prosecutors take a lesson from Erlinda Johnson in the Alec Baldwin case and recognize when they are on a sinking ship. I really, truly hope that the O'Keefe family finds peace. The way Paul was talking in these interviews, it's like he views Trooper Proctor as a sacrificial lamb, like there's been an injustice perpetrated on Proctor, as if Michael Proctor isn't fully responsible for his own actions. It's really unbelievable. John O'Keefe deserves justice, and personally, I think his family members are looking for justice in the wrong place. I doubt John O'Keefe will ever get justice at this point because of how badly this investigation was botched. And I think that is what is bugging most people following this case. We will all have our opinions of what happened that night, but because of how badly this investigation was carried out, we will never know beyond a reasonable doubt what happened to John that night. And for that reason, Karen Read should not be re-prosecuted. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on Instagram, Threads, and X at Reality Squad, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Take care. Have a good one. Much love.